This is Fox 11 Forum, a look at issues of concern to Tucson and Nogales, with your host, Bob Lee.
Good morning. I hope you're having a nice Valentine's Day today. Today is also V-Day around the world, an organized response against violence towards women. V-Day is also a catalyst, unifying and strengthening existing anti-violence efforts, triggering awareness, and laying the groundwork for new educational, protective, and legislative endeavors throughout the world. It's a day to celebrate women and to end the violence. More coming up in a minute. This is the 9th year D of E Tucson is presenting Eve Ensler's Vagina Monologues. D of E Tucson is the first group in the United States to present the monologues in complete Spanish. Let me introduce my guest this morning. Paty Gonzalez is the 2010 D of E Tucson co-organizer. Frida Espinosa Cardenas is this year's artistic director. And Carla Turco is an actress and committee member of D of E Tucson. And Carla is also director of the EYA group, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for your continued participation in putting this important project on, and as we'll talk about again this year, it is an important project. First of all, I mentioned it's D of E Day around the world. Tell us more about V-Day and what that means.
Correct. So V-Day is a global movement that involves everybody, not only in the U.S., but in many countries around the world. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to raise funds and awareness to help women and children beat violence. So we're trying to raise funds to help organizations that help those women and those children. And we're also trying to create awareness. I mean, there's so many violent acts going on around the world, and we really need to let people know that we need to help, we need to do something about it, and we all need to be a part of this movement.
When you talk about raising funds, how are the funds used that you raise?
The funds that we raise as the Ave Tucson go to two different places. We give a percentage to the national V-Day movement, and that spotlight this year is the women of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And our second beneficiary is a local organization, and the one that Carla is the director of, and it's called EYA Group. And maybe Carla can explain more about that.
We'll get to that in a second.
Perfect.
I want to cover the rest of the ground. Now, we talked about the situation in the Congo last year. Has anything changed? Has the awareness effort helped? Is it, my understanding is that to some extent that's sort of a government-sanctioned situation there.
Definitely, and I really think, Bob, that the awareness has increased and a lot of people are more aware of what's going on in the Republic of Congo, but the violence has not stopped. And that's why not only did we decide to do it last year, but again this year, because, I mean, there's still women being kidnapped, raped, forced into prostitution, and it's a movement that still is going on right now, and that's why we decided to do the Republic of Congo one more time.
What's the history of V-Day? When did that get started?
V-Day got started through the author Eve Ensler. Through her talks, her conversations with women around the world. She then started the Vagina Monologues and wrote the Vagina Monologues and made it available for women to perform around the world, and it has been translated in many countries. And that started 13 years ago, the actual movement, which has become an international movement. And Eve Ensler is now one of, the most important people, well, at least in our Western world, as an advocate for, to stop.
Tell us something
women.
about her. What's her background?
Her background, she's an artist, essentially. However, she got involved through these conversations.
This was about 13 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, about 13 years ago, Eve Ensler just started talking to women, and she was inspired into getting more into, this issue, this
She getting
situation.
rich from this whole thing?
No. No. pretty much even at National V-Day headquarters in New York, pretty much, whatever expenses or whatever money is made is, for the movement itself.
Yeah, she pretty much turned it over to the national, anything she makes, she turned over to the national
Correct.
organization.
And to date, Bob, over $60 million have been raised to help these women and to create awareness around the world. So that's a lot of money, definitely. But, I mean, V-Day sees very little of that. It's all put into local organizations, international organizations that help women and children.
How many international organizations are there these days, do you know?
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, it's double figures, isn't it? I mean, it's
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And the Vagina Monologues are presented in over 120 countries in various languages and various backgrounds. So, I mean, it's a global movement, and we're just this little tiny part in Tucson here that we're trying to make a difference in for our community.
On that note, we talked about the situation in the Congo. What's the situation here in Pima County? What do we know about violence here, especially as it relates women?
Well, we know that it exists. I mean, in the line of work that I have, I mean, many of our mental and behavioral health issues start from, especially in women, start from the consequence of abuse, and whether it be sexual abuse or physical abuse. I mean, this is happening in our community, not just in the other side of the world. And yeah, I don't have the exact figures, but just from working with women and with family and with men, not just women are victims of sexual abuse and physical abuse, also men and boys are victims. And so it's there. It's definitely in our community all the time.
We're a university town, a college town, and that sometimes brings unique challenges. Is date rape, for example, something that is a big issue here because of being a college town?
It is, and it is also actually part of the V-Day movement. There is a huge proposal that is going on in making university campuses more aware and more ready to act when, violent crimes like that happen. And so it is part of the movement in awareness, not just, in lower income or socioeconomic backgrounds, but also in the colleges.
Are universities and colleges becoming more aware and realizing the responsibility that they have?
Well, we're hoping, Rob.
Yes, and
we're hoping.
And I think the VA has done a huge part in that, because there are a ton of college campuses around the nation that have put on the Vagina Monologues. I was involved in the Vagina Monologues back in '06 at the University of Arizona, and that was, they had been doing that for quite some years, and it's still going on. And so I believe that the U of A is a part of the many networks of universities and colleges putting on the Vagina Monologues. So I think the U of A is doing its part to create that awareness in those campuses.
And we just got to get it in some high schools.
Exactly, we sure do.
All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we'll talk more about V-Day, as well as the production of the Vagina Monologues, which is coming up here in Tucson, March 19. Mark that date down. We'll be right back. March 19 at the Leo Rich Theater. It's the latest production of the Vagina Monologues, and we'll talk a little bit more about the production in just a minute. In the meantime, I don't want to neglect Carla. Tell us about the EYA group and what that's all about.
All right. EYA group, EYA stands for Empowering Lives of Latinas in America. It's a nonprofit here in Tucson, and we teach self-defense and empowerment to women and young women. We began about 4 years ago.
Now, it seems to me if you know self-defense, you're going to be pretty well empowered.
Yes. Well, actually, I knew a little bit of self-defense, but I wasn't empowered. So what we do is with the women, we talk to them, we let them know how great they are. We just build their self-esteem. And so they can, they're ready to take over the world.
So where does this take place? Who's participating, et cetera? Give us a little more about the...